Hello and welcome to another exciting episode following me, Almost Immortal, as I play Allthemodium 9 to the sky. Between episodes, I have done a few little things, mainly to prepare for this episode and also to organise a few things for in the future. First of all, I have got the mystical flower seeds, which is ready for Botania. Those are already going ahead, and you'll be able to see here we've got 22,000 mystical flower essence already. This means we can create any of the mystical flowers that we want whenever we start Botania. I have also prepped an area for today where we're going to look into Ars Nouveau again, but this time we're going to be creating a Drygmy farm, which is going to go over here. And also, this is going to require a little area to contain our mobs, which are going to go in the farm. I've also set up a small section for my villagers. I've automated their breeding and turning into the conversion so that it converts them and then puts them in a chest. I just need to add a few more potions here, but to do that, I've set some pattern providers next to the bottler as well as next to the brewing stand. And I've got this importing the potions in when they're done, and this also importing in the bottles so that we can get bottles of water into there. Such a simple setup, but it's made our potions much easier to get when we want to breed our villagers. Over here, I upgraded the energizing rods to spirited so that we can output more power, and I also set up a little area to get our nitro crystals. And that's using 1 nether star, 2 blocks of redstone, and 1 block of blazing crystal. That fed into there, and now I've got so many nitro crystals. Look at that. Finally, to make things easier, and just to finish off the Getting Started 2 quests, I created a infinity wand. Today, I'd like to make a start on productive bees. It'd be nice to get some honey seeds so that we can get set up later on for when we want to improve our bee setup. And it'd also be good to jump back into the end and get some Draconic Bees. And finally, to set up a small patch on one of our little corner islands with some beehives and use some of the bee expansion boxes. After that, I think it'd be good to look at the star quests over here, what we've got. As you can see, there's quite a few already ticked off just from things we've been doing up till now, but we're nowhere near the middle yet. I think I'll start with Ars Nouveau and get a Drygmy farm going, and then we'll focus on getting to the focus of summoning. And then, it'd be nice to look at the Allthemodium ingot, so that we can get Allthemodium, and maybe work our way to Vibranium and Unobtainium, so then we can get the seeds for each, and ultimately the armour, so we can upgrade ourselves. Finally, if there is time today, we can have a quick look into Botania and see what we need to get to the Gaia Spirit. But we won't be getting that today. Let's jump right in. So, to start things off, let's have a look at the Productive Bees quests. What we're working towards is the Kamikaze Bees, so that we can give them very high productivity, and also working on getting as many honeycombs and bottles of honey as we can get. We'd also like to get the sturdy bee cage, which you can only get from the villagers, I believe. So let's have a look. To start off, we need to plant a sapling near some flowers, or even just one flower. I've done this. I've just set up a little area here and surrounded the thing in hopes that we might get one. Well, let's see. Huzzah! We finally have a bee's nest. So all we do now is we wait until this produces honey. We could move this, and we could even put these in a normal hive, which I might do at some point. But for now, I'll leave them be, and we'll see if we can get a couple more beehives. So I managed to get 2 bee nests. One of them's now full, so if anyone out there doesn't know how you harvest, it's just as simple as putting a campfire underneath a bee nest, and then you can choose to either shear it or use glass bottles on it to get honey bottles. What I'm after is this honey agglomeratio, which is 2 honeycomb and 2 honey bottles. So I'm going to need 8 of each anyway. So we'll start with shearing. That gives me 3. And then when this one's done, we can put fire underneath that as well. And this just stops them attacking us. So I can leave that. And I'll slowly let that build up. After waiting a while, I managed to get enough for the honey agglomeratio. So I'm just going to quickly make the honey seed. And then we can get the honey bottles and honeycombs automated. That's the seed, and it's planted. There's the essence. Essence is away. I'll put 4 netherite upgrades on there. I've been putting netherite upgrades on all of them for now, just in case. That way we don't get any overflow. And look at that. I can now hold 2.1 billion honey essence. Fantastic. To make things easier, I'm going to sort the crafting pattern for the bottles and for the honeycombs. There we are. So I've set up a crafting pattern for honeycombs, honey treats, honeycomb blocks, honey bottles, and honey blocks. I'll just pop these in here. There we go. Now if we need honey, we can just go, let's get 10. And they were made almost instantly. Brilliant. Next, I'd like to make sure I've got some bee cages. And instead of getting the ones that break after each use, which is just the standard bee cage, I want some sturdy ones. I think I got one here from a quest at some point, but I think it would be best to take one of these villagers, pop him in here, and I'm going to give him a beehive. So I've got one advanced beehive here, give him that, and now he's a beekeeper. So I'm going to trade with him a little while until we've got the bee cages, and then we can start setting up our beehives and the expansion boxes. And after a while, I've managed to get the sturdy bee cages. Wasn't very long, to be honest, because since upgrading them with the converter, since they've been converted, everything's cheap. So the sturdy bee cages are worth 1 and a bee cage. And you can buy the bee cages off them as well, 1 emerald for 4. Now that I've got 10 of those, I can use those to pretty much grab any bee I like. And I think we're going to start with Draconic. But before we do that, I need somewhere for them to go. I've gone ahead and made some beehives. I'm using the advanced acacia beehives and the expansion boxes to go along with them. I'll start it off like this. So we'll have a beehive and then an expansion box. And then we'll have another beehive, another expansion box. And then we'll do an expansion box and a beehive. And we'll do it in that order. This is so that we can put a pipe between them like this. And then we'll have those two, and then we'll do the same on this side. And I think I'll just do one side of them for now, and I'll go 5 up. That'll be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So we need 50 beehives. So that's 50 beehives set up with expansion boxes. The reason I've put expansion boxes in early is because it moves it from 3 to 5 slots. So we can put 5 bees in each one of these here. And what I'll do is I'll section them off into, like, this lot might be Draconic, one of these might be Lapis, Diamond, and so on. Now that we have somewhere for them to go, the next thing I'd like to do is prevent them from leaving the hive. So to stop the bees getting out of the hive and flying away, we need something called a simulator upgrade. This is one of these. Now what I've done is just created the pattern for everything in here, including the honeycomb, the anti-teleportation part, and the upgrade base. So we need to make 50 of these. And we have enough. So I'll just let that go. Much quicker than doing it manually. And all this does is it stops the bees from being able to leave the hive. And we only need one of these in here. And what it does is it also puts a little port here that allows you to put the bee cage in, and if you put it in empty, it will take a bee. If you put it in with a bee in the cage, it will deposit a bee, and then the empty thing goes there, or the one with the bee that you've taken goes there. And then we'll pipe everything in and out, and that'll make things a little bit easier. As you can see, I've also lifted these by 1, just to make things a little bit easier for putting the feeding slab, which I'll show you soon. So I've put the simulator upgrades in this one, this one, this one, and this one. So we can put a pipe here and a pipe here, going all the way down and collecting all the items from these, and we can automate that. Next, we need a feeding slab, and that is this thing here. Now, I've found that if you put the feeding slab about there, which is one just under there, under the beehive, that slab will work for that beehive. And I'm going to put them all here like this. And then for the bottom one, I have to put one there, and then you can put one in front of it, which is the reason I've lifted all these up by 1 so that the slab can be placed. And then all we do is we put the item on here that we're going to use for that particular bee. What we need first, though, is bees. As I said, the first one we're going to go with is Draconic. So let's nip over to the end and grab a couple. To get Draconic Bees, you need an obsidian nest, which is one of these, and some dragon's breath. You just use it on it and it will count down. I am not sitting here and waiting 1,196 seconds, so you just use the dragon's breath you've got on it and it speeds it up. So that's the first one. Grabbed that. That's the second one. Now, the reason I only wanted 2 of these is because I'm going to breed them. And when I do breed them, I want to make sure that they have the traits that I want on there. So first I need to get some kamikaze bees to get the very high productivity trait. And then I think I need a water bee for weather tolerance. And then I also need to leave them overnight to be able to change their behaviour from diurnal to whatever the other one's called. It's not nocturnal, it's like, it might be biurnal or something, but we'll see. I'll show you that as I go through. So now I need to do 2 things. And the first is try and get my bees to be able to produce both during day and night. So I'm going to have to leave them tied up to a fence post here until the next day and hope they turn. It is a very low chance, so I just have to hope for the best, really. In the meantime, I need to fish, and I'm just going to fish away until I find a water bee, and then I'm going to catch it. I need to get that, and then I need to squash it down, so I might need 2 or 3 of them, until I get enough gene for the weather tolerance, which just means if it rains or thunderstorms, they'll still continue to produce. There we go, that's our first water bee. Now I need to get maybe 3 or 4 more of them. After spending what felt like weeks of in-game playtime, waiting, just watching these bees, I've managed to get 2 of them to Metaturnal, which just means that they can now generate honey both through the day and at night. I also got a productivity beta upgrade, which increases the production by 150%, and I've stuck a couple of speed upgrades in there. I leave them to generate their combs, and in the meantime, I also got 2 water bees, and I bred them just using flowers and putting some bee cages there. And let me show you a little setup I've got here. So I've got a timer here that's got 60 ticks, which should be about 3 seconds. And then if I put some bee cages in here with the water bees in, these will dispense into here. And what I've done is I've set this here, an import bus, to pull in the sturdy bee cages back into the network. And then I have also set up an item collector to grab all of the items that they would drop and feed them into a centrifuge. The centrifuge then processes the bee material and it turns it into these gene samples. What I'm after is the weather tolerance, which is there. We've got 2 of those. So I can put those on the Draconic Bees now. I'm not going to do it just yet, but that should be enough to put on the 2 Draconic Bees I've got. And when I've got the very high productivity from the Kamikaze Bees, we'll have 2 Draconic Bees with very high productivity, with Metaturnal behaviour, and with any weather tolerance, making them the ultimate type of bees. What I'll do in the meantime, while I'm waiting for all this to finish, I'm going to set up the Drygmy farm with Ars Nouveau. While I was waiting for the bees to convert to Metaturnal, I set up a shady wizard here with an arcane core, and I just bought a load of things with emeralds until he was selling Drygmy tokens. So now I've got 12 Drygmy tokens. Let's get a couple more actually. The more Drygmys we've got, you see, the more they will collect. So I've got 20 now. And what we need to do first is set up this little area here, which is going to be the containment area. This will continue to run the containment ritual, and any mobs that get within distance of here will get trapped in these containment jars. So I've got the tablet of containment here. I would use that just on there, and then I would activate it when a mob gets nearby. It will continue to run as long as it's got source. I do have a couple of mobs already. So I've got a mob imprisonment tool with a blaze in it, a mob yoinker with a wither in it, and a mob catcher with a ghast in it. So let's try these. First of all, you just run that there, and then drop the blaze. There you go. That's in there. And then we'll try the yoinker with the wither. And now we hope that the spell will just capture that the second it's out. There we go. And then finally, we have the ghast. Fantastic. Next, I need to get some Drygmys and set up the little Drygmy farm here. So to get Drygmys, we need to use a Drygmy charm on the mossy cobblestone that I've got over there. So I'll get all the items together and we'll get a few tokens. Because we're going to need some fish, this is a good time to set up the marine fisher, which will do all of our fishing for us. So we just put it in the center of a 5x5 area of water, like so. We give it a power source and hook a pipe up to it, just like that. And then we just pop a chest on top, like this, and set it to go. And that should just fish. As it's industrial foregoing, we can also put a few add-ons on there. Let's add speed, processing, and an efficiency. And there we are. And then that's making many fish. And that'll just get deposited in here. We'll also end up with things like enchanted books, which is nice. Now that we've got that, we can begin making our Drygmy tokens. So this recipe is just 3 source gems, a wheat, any seed, a fish, a carrot, and an apple with a Drygmy token in the middle. I want to make as many as I can now, and then I'll show you how to set this up. Now that I have 20 of the Drygmy charms, I'm going to use one on here. Just like that. And it creates a Drygmy henge. There's the Drygmy. And then use all those. Those are my Drygmys. They will use this source jar and they will collect items from any nearby containment jars. So what I want is to very quickly just grab these, and then they should harvest them from within 10 blocks away. So we'll make a little thing here, and they should pop it in this backpack. Here they are, they start dancing. Now hopefully we'll see some particle effects to show they're harvesting. There we are. And look at that. Experience gems, gunpowder, and blaze rods. Hopefully we'll start to see some gas tiers and also some nether stars. I've never tried this before on Allthemodium 9 to the skies, I've only ever tried it on the normal Allthemodium 9, and the main reason I wanted to do it here is because I'm pretty sure we can get the Wilden Chimera things we need for the Allthemodium Star. It's this here, the Wilden Tribute that I'm after, which is going to come from the Wilden Chimera. Now would be a good time to try and get one. So as far as I'm aware, all we need is the Ritual Brazier here. We will have some method of capturing the mobs, and then we just need a source jar. Let's take this one for now. And I've already got this here. Summon Wilden. And I'll catch one of each of them. That's that one. That's that one. That one. There we are. And then we'll capture these. And pop these in our little farm over here now. So I've left that to run for a moment, and we've got a horn, a wing, and a spike, which is what we need now to summon the Wilden Chimera, which we will try. So you just put each of the items in here, and then you activate it, and then we hope that we can grab it. Look at that. That was nice and easy, wasn't it? Now we wait to see if we can get the tribute. It's moments like this when you realise you forgot to do something. This here should be hooked up to the network, but it isn't right now. There we go. That meant source wasn't going into the jar. After doing a wee bit of research online, I came to learn that both the Wither and the Wilden Chimera cannot be harvested using Drygmys. That's because their loot tables are hard-coded as a guaranteed drop. Something along those lines. Oh well, I'll just have to do it manually. But before I do, I'm going to get me some Allthemodium. I've got nitro crystals. Now I just need to find a way to get each of these. So we need refined glowstone, flux-infused ingot, energetic alloy, diorum ingot, and soul-infused ingot. So let's have a gander at these. We can make refined glowstone seeds, so that'll be good. For flux infused, we can make the seeds for them as well. As with energetic alloy, which it looks like we need the smelter for that one. For diorum, we could use bees, but we would need to get a soul, go through Forbidden Arcanus, and get a golden bee spawn egg. So I might just get enough to be able to make the Allthemodium that we need. And then as for soul-infused ingots, it's making soul-infused dust through soul sand dust, which you get through a pulverizer. Let me gather some things together, and we can see if we can get our first Allthemodium. So to get refined glowstone ingots, we need an osmium compressor. We'll need glowstone, the glowstone dust, and we will need osmium. What you do is you just put the glowstone dust there, pop the osmium in there, and then it'll start to make it. I'll speed this up a little bit. And then I just need 36 of these to make a seed and set up the pattern as usual. That should be enough. While we're here though, it seems like a good opportunity to make refined obsidian. Refined obsidian is just obsidian that you crush in the squeezer to get obsidian dust. And then you pop it in an infusing factory with the diamond or enriched diamond, which makes refined obsidian dust. And then you just do the same. You just pop osmium in here with refined obsidian dust, and it creates refined obsidian ingots. Now that we have both of those, I'll put them in the network, just in drawers, and then I will make a seed for both of them. That's refined obsidian seeds, and that's refined glowstone seeds. I'll set those up with their essence in a drawer, and get their pattern set up in a crafter. And that's them set up. Next is flux infused ingot, which is a little bit easier because we can just make it. And we only need 4. There we are. Again, I'll set that up in the network. And I'll get a craft set up for it. For energetic alloy, we're going to need one of these primitive alloy smelters. And it's just popping redstone, gold, and glowstone dust with some sort of fuel like coal. And then it'll make energetic alloy. So I've just quickly set up the primitive alloy smelter here. And I've just hooked it up to my controllers and got an export bus with the items that I need into it. And that'll just sit and smelt away. I need quite a few of these, so I'm just going to leave it in the background while I make the seeds for the flux infused ingot. As for the soul infused ingots, I've made a pulverizer to pop the soul sand into, which will very, very slowly turn it into soul sand dust. And then we can use that to then make soul infused dust. And then finally, we can make soul infused ingots by smelting it. We do have to wait a bit. At some point in the future, I will get onto thermal series and we'll be able to get the augments. But for now, I'm just going to let this go ahead in the background and we'll get some dust from that. In the end, I changed my mind. I decided I wanted to add some upgrades to make it faster because after maybe 10 minutes, there's only 2. So I've made this here, resonant integral component and 3 flux linkage amplifiers. And look at that, it's already going much faster. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to make a little bit more of the soul sand as well. So we've got plenty of that to the side. And I'll let it run. So the only thing I'm missing now to make the Allthemodium seed is the Diorum ingot. But to get that, I need behaviour dust. As you can tell, I'm not familiar with that one, eh? But to make that, I need phantom membranes. And I need to wait until phantoms attack me. So it's just a waiting game for now. After waiting a while, I finally got a sky demon to appear. I killed it, and there was another one, and I popped that in the Drygmy farm. So we've got some phantom membranes appearing in the Drygmy farm now, but also I've just thrown in some matter balls here to start this off so that we've got some more here. Everything else has either been created for this here. So we've got nitro crystal, we've got some soul infused ingots. We've not got them automated yet, but we will do eventually. We've now got energetic alloys, flux infused ingots, and refined glowstone as well, because all of these you can get through mystical agriculture, and I've just set them up as we did all the others. The last one to get is Diorum, and we need this, behaviour dust. We're hoping for, I think, 12 of these, so that we can get 12 lots of the Allthemodiums. So we're going to need 24 of those. That should do it. I've already got some arcane crystal dust, and I've already got some charcoal done. So that's 12 of those. And that is now in the network. Earlier, I created a pattern for Allthemodium. I've set it up on the energizing orb, which is just here. That's all linked up. That will not push if it already contains the pattern input. And we can ignore these now. Turn that off. Turn that off. And we will see if we can create Allthemodium. We need 36, I believe. Let's see. Look at that. Now, I think the only way we can actually bring this back in the network now is by having a import bus. And we set the import bus to take in Allthemodium. Set that there. And I'll also just make sure there's some in our network. This is exciting, isn't it? Our very first Allthemodium. We'll pop it just there. And then the last thing to do is just connect that. And then, oh, there we go. To just speed that up a little bit, we can give it an acceleration card. There we go, look how quick that was. And now we should be able to make the Allthemodium seed. Now the Allthemodium recipe to make the seeds requires insanium blocks. So, quite expensive. But here we go. Fantastic. These are ever so slightly different in that they require a crux to work. This one needs magical soil, which needs insanium blocks, insanium farmland, and dragon scales. One thing we could do, though, is we could pop them in a phytogenic insulator, and it wouldn't require a crux at all. And if we set up a phyto grow area, we could have it just growing in there with all of the upgrades, but we just don't have enough resources to make the upgrades just yet. I will do a future episode where we go through thermal series and set up these phytogenic insulators, purely so that we can use Allthemodium, Vibranium, and Unobtainium seeds without having to use any of their cruxes. But for the time being, we're going to have to make the magic soil. There is a simple way to make the insanium soil. I will make a few, just because we're here, and we might need it for magical soil in the future. So it's just hold this, and then you just put insanium on here. Just like that. And then to pick it up, we use our pickaxe from Silent Gear that we made before. And we have insanium farmland. We'll use this in the middle there. And then we just need some dragon scales and insanium blocks. So it's 4 insanium blocks, 4 dragon scales, and there you go. Magic soil. So these work a little bit differently in that we will need to break one of these here. And then we have to put this in. But we do have to get rid of the lily pad first. Just like that. And I've also made a nitro crystal one. So we'll do the same for that. Pop the soil back over. And then we'll just need to re-fertilizer it. And now we know that one for Allthemodium. And we can see that's working. And that one for nitro crystal. And that one's working. Great. Now we just pop these in the network. To make the nitro crystals, though, we have to be wary that we also need a nether star. So I'm not going to set these up as a pattern just yet. Instead, I might get a nether star pattern and put them in the same crafter. But I'll think about that in the future. For now, I'll just have these ready and I can create them on demand. Now, I'm going to do something ever so slightly different on here. I know there's one port left here, but I'm going to give Allthemodium 2 slots. That'll turn into that. We want it internal. And then we'll have this one external. There we go. Now we just feed it in. That's Allthemodium. Now we just wait for our network to fill up. So the next thing we could do is get Vibranium, which you just need the summoning altar, and we need to have another look at ours to get all the different essences, and a bucket of life as well. It's not that difficult, but I'm not going to do that today. Instead, I'm going to let my Allthemodium build up, and then I'm going to focus on killing the Wilden Chimera, I think 16 times, so that we can get the focus of summoning 16 times, which we can then use for the Dragon Soul. But the reason I'm doing it 16 times is because I'd rather just go straight to the Starry Bee and automate our ATM Star. And yeah, make it a bit easier for us. So there are 2 things that I'd like to achieve before the end of this episode. The very last is going to be sorting out the bees so that they have the top genes that I want them to have, which I will then breed so that we can have lots of those for all the other bees. But to achieve that, we need the kamikaze bees, which give us the very high productivity. I'd also like to get the 16 Wilden tributes, and why not do both at the same time? So I've set up this bee catcher. I've got some sturdy bee cages in there ready. I've got 2 range upgrades, hoping that it will be enough to catch them as they get released, and I've got 2 speed upgrades. Don't know if they do anything, but we'll find out. To do this, I've had to put on a bee nest helmet, and that has a 30% chance to spawn a kamikaze bee. I'm going to use the Tablet of Summon Wilden on there, and then just 1 of each of these augments, which is each of the Wilden drops. And then you just right click. I've got to let it hit me a couple of times to try and get some bees, and then I'll kill it. I'm going to do this 16 times, so I'll show you maybe once, or I'll speed through it, and I won't bore you with all of it, because 16 times. Here he is. And then he gets his second form. I can fly too. And there's his third stage, where it gains a bit of spike. So we got 2 bees from that one. 2 kamikaze bees. Now let's do it again. Very quick intermission between Wilden Chimeras, just to say, I now have Allthemodium armour. Look at that. These have infinite durability, so I don't have to worry about them breaking. Back to it. It took a while, but I managed to get all 16. There they are. I also got myself an Allthemodium sword and an Allthemodium axe, because they were much better than my netherite packsaw that I had. Now I've got all the things together to create the focus of summoning. Let's get that done. So it's one of those, one of those, one of those, one of each of the Wilden parts, 1 gold ingot, 1 Wilden tribute, and then that in the middle, which is just a source gem block. Looks like we don't need any source for this, which is great. And I'll just make all 16. And that is the last focus of summoning. If we have a look at the quest now, you can see that's been ticked off. And we need it for the Dragon Soul. So I'm just going to shove it in the network, and while we get the other parts, we can just wait to use it. And then we'll be ready to make 16 of the Dragon Souls. That's quite a way off though, I bet. So during the Wilden fights, I had my bee catcher going, and this is how many kamikaze bees we managed to get. So I'm going to put those in here now, and hopefully we can get enough to be able to get very high productivity and store lots of them in here for now. And I'll show you how we put all the traits that we need onto the Draconics, and how we breed the Draconics. So out of that, we managed to get 8 productivity very high at 100%. We only need 2 for now. And we've also got 4 weather tolerance, any, which again we only need 2. Let me show you how these work. So all you do is you grab a honey treat in your crafting table, and you pop the gene sample to the side of it, and it gives you a honey treat that will give the trait to the bee when it's used on it. So there we go. So I've grabbed the bees, and I'll put them on 1 by 1. That's 1, 2, grab. And as you see there, very high productivity, any weather tolerance, Metaturnal, strong endurance, and quite aggressive. And then we'll do the last one. And there we go. So now what we do is we take them over to the breeding area. Get rid of these. Pop those in. Pop the Draconics in. And these need, instead of flowers, they need Draconic Dust. But they need 2 dust. So we'll do 16 to begin with. Here they are. And that'll give us 8 bees. I'll let those go ahead, and we'll get some in this chest. After waiting just a few minutes, we now have a full advanced beehive of Draconic Bees that have the very high any weather tolerance and Metaturnal gene traits. So that's great. We have another 16 Draconic Dust in here, which should give us about 8 more. And then there's the other 2 in there, so I'm going to fill up the entirety of all these 5 here. And then I'm going to keep breeding them so that we can get all the good traits ready for future bees. And then in between episodes, I'll probably get some other bees and start filling up this here. So I'm not sure if I've mentioned it already, but the reason that we want to get the Draconic Bees specifically is because they're what we need to make each of the upgrades to make our bees brilliant. So we need to get Draconic chunks, which come from the Draconic Dust, which is what we get from centrifuging the honeycombs. And we only get that from Draconic Bees. So I want to get as many as I can, 5 hives to begin with. And then we'll build up our stock of Draconic Dust. And hopefully we can get lots and lots of them so that we can get our way up to the Productivity Omega, which gives us 260% per upgrade on increased output. But it can also function as a simulator upgrade, so we don't need the simulator one that we've got in. And to top it off, it turns them into blocks, so you get more honey and more items out of them. That'll be way later, but something to work towards. And now, if you can see here, we've gone through quite a lot already. And we're actually up to here where we've got the upgrades. The next step is going to be getting all the different types of bees. I think I will leave it there. We've done so much today. We've got all of our beehives ready for future bees. We've got our first bees, the Draconic Bees, and they're set up with the best gene traits we can get them, with very high productivity, any weather tolerance, and Metaturnal. We've also got an auto-squashing area hooked up to a centrifuge for a gene indexer. And we've got our centrifuges hooked up to the beehives so that we can automate everything and push the resulting items into our network. We've even got a fluid drawer over there that's pulling in honey. On top of that, we've got a breeding area that's now going ahead and getting us all the wonderful bees that we need to keep on top of all the gene demands we're going to need in the future. And what I'm wearing as well, you can see I've got Allthemodium armour, as well as some of the weapons and tools. And we have the seeds set up, as well as several other seeds that's going to keep our resources topped up. We have a wonderful little Drygmy farm just over there. And we've killed the Wilden Chimera 16 times. And we've got 16 focus of summonings as well. And when we look at the star quests, you can see we're slowly crossing them off. And I think next time we'll focus on Botania. But we'll think about that between episodes. If you've stuck with me until now, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Until next time.